Hello, world. You're listening to Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, where we're always creeping it real. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner.
I'm excited to announce that today I have a guest co-host, my daughter Cassidy Bain Wagner. Welcome, Cassidy, and thanks for participating.
Thank you for having me.
Near-death experiences, NDEs, occur when someone is on the brink of death and temporarily crosses over. The individual can recount what they saw in the realm of the dead when they recover. An out-of-body encounter sometimes happens when the soul can discern their physical form from a distance. NDEs and out-of-body encounters are not uncommon and often occur simultaneously. NDEs often precede spiritual awakenings, with the individual being profoundly and emotionally changed afterward. Researchers have recorded amazingly similar descriptions among those who experienced NDEs. Many claim to have seen a flashed recap of their life and or tunnel of light. Others believe their guardian angel or deceased loved ones brought them back. Today's guest, who for the past 40 years has been an expert in real estate property management, experienced a near-death experience so traumatic in 1999 that she became an author writing about her disturbing encounter, which shifted her religious beliefs to a deep spirituality and changed her life forever. I'd like to welcome M.K. McDaniel, Kathy, as she's known to her friends. Welcome. Is it okay for me to call you Kathy today?
Certainly. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So in 1999, you were dying from lung failure and were placed on a ventilator and put into a drug-induced coma. Please explain what happened next.
Well, I'll preface that with the doctor that was going to do the procedure said, now don't worry, don't be nervous. We're going to just put you to sleep. You won't remember a thing. So that's the last thing he told me. And of course, we know 22 years later, it is still very fresh in my mind what happened to me. He was correct in that I didn't remember any of the medical procedures, but it only goes to show that an NDE takes place not in your brain, but in your consciousness, in your soul. And that's the reason the drug did not dissuade me from remembering, because it was really something I experienced outside of my body. I had been very sick. I'd been taking care of a friend. Now I'm so sick that they're afraid I can't breathe on my own anymore. So I'm a little upset, but I say, fine, I'm going to sleep. I shut my eyes and it was all black. It just was gone. I was like sound asleep. But all of a sudden, and I don't know when this happened because I was in the coma for almost 3 weeks. And there was a part of that time where they said to my family, there's nothing more we can do. We don't think she's going to make it. You need to come say your goodbyes. So I am assuming that at that time I was at death's door. And while you're in a coma, this was explained to me later, your consciousness tends to be a little loosey-goosey in there. It's not as grounded as if you're fully awake. So people in comas are known to be able to drift over to the other side without having to flatline or drown or something like that. So this was explained to me later. But I didn't know anything about NDEs at the time. I was 53 years old, and here I am. I wake up, and it's pitch black. There's no sound. I have no idea how I got there. It felt like being in a closet when you're playing a game as a kid when you go hide in the closet. And I didn't know if I was sitting or standing. I was afraid to move. I thought maybe I'd fall off whatever I was on. So I had no choice but to wait. And as I did, I noticed that it started to get a little bit lighter. And I thought, okay. And it got like reddish glow started to happen. It felt like the sun was coming up. And I started to settle down. I thought, well, okay, pretty soon I'll have an explanation for this. But as it got lighter, there was a swirling fog that prevented me from seeing anything except this brighter but not bright light, dim light of red. And I noticed it was getting warmer. I was smelling something that didn't smell right to me. And then I started hearing the sounds. I heard shrieks and then moans. It was very Halloween-y. And I thought, oh, this can't be good. And then this voice boomed out of the fog and said, do you know where you are?
Oh, my goodness.
I just started shaking, and I tried my best to try and think of a good explanation, and I couldn't come up with one. So I just kind of whispered, hell? And this voice boomed back with this horrible voice, wah, just like in a horror movie. Well, I was terrified, and I thought of nothing but getting away from this thing. I didn't even want to see what it looked like. So I just turned to the left, and I started running. I didn't care what happened to me. I was getting out of there. So the next thing I know is this scene opened up, and I thought, okay, maybe I found a way out of this, whatever it is. But when I looked around, there was still this reddish glow. The fog was gone, but in the distance, kind of outlined against the horizon, were these big, huge New York buildings, big, tall buildings, but the windows were blown out. The glass was everywhere. A lot of them were just tipped over and broken, and there was big chunks of concrete everywhere with rebar sticking out, and fires here, and smoke over here, and noise. And I thought, oh my gosh, there must have been an atomic bomb that went off. Must be what happened. So I thought I'd better try and find someplace to hide. So I looked around, and there was two great big pieces of concrete that had kind of fallen together and that made kind of a V. So I thought, I'm going to just tuck myself in there and just get my bearings. And as I did, my heart, I felt, was pounding. And I will put in here right now, I never felt dead. That thought never occurred to me. That was very interesting to find out when I got back, that people feel that way, because we don't need a body to be us, because our souls are us. And I didn't have a mirror. I didn't have any way to check. I just felt alive. So back to my Girl Scout days kind of kicked in, and I thought, I'm a survivor. I need to find food. I need to find water. And I saw what I thought was another person kind of tucked down behind some rubble over in the distance. And I thought, oh, great, somebody else survived. So I yelled out, hello, over there. Do you want to get together? I'll go find food. You go find fires, something to start a fire. And he cut me off, and he said, we are all alone here. I thought, well, what a strange thing to say. What do you mean all? And why are we have to be alone? Well, it's all very detailed in the book, but to shorten it up, there were other creatures I saw. There were like the sounds of some huge spiders with clicking claws that went by and when I tucked back in. But I thought, I've got to have to run for it. I've got to find a better place, because there's too many things that I could be harmed by here. So I took off running, and I jumped for this one piece of concrete to pull myself over the top. And I heard things behind me, and I started sliding down, and I turned around to face them, and boom, I was somewhere else. And this was the theme of that whole experience, is I would get into a situation that was very dangerous, and then I'd make a decision about what to do next, and I would have a completely different scene just explode upon me. And it was like being on a movie set or something. It was very disorienting. I never felt safe. I just went from situation to situation. One early one was that I found myself, boom, in this dark place that got lighter. And then I noticed this demon, and that's the only word I can use to describe it. It's just a huge being that kind of looked like probably a Yeti or a Bigfoot or something, but just really mean and could talk. And I was kind of shocked to see this thing. And he says, I'm in charge here. And do you want to get out? And I says, well, yeah. He says, well, I will let you out on one condition. I said, sure, name it. I want to go home. I don't know where I am. And he says, well, I need you to cut down this blackberry field. And the lights kind of went up, and I could see as far as I could see with these huge blackberry. I don't know if you've ever been in a blackberry field, but they have big canes on them that are about an inch thick, and they crisscross, and they fill in all the space, and they have big long thorns on them. And I looked at this field, and I thought, oh my goodness, as far as I could see. And I thought, well, it's a chance out. I said, sure, I'll give it a try. So he opens his hand, and he has this little pair of scissors that kindergarten kids use to cut paper. And I thought, this person this thing is toying with me like I'm a cat and a mouse. And I was angry. And I thought, okay, I wasn't going to, he was chuckling. And I thought, I'm not going to give him the satisfaction. So I grabbed the scissors and I tried to lean down. And of course, I started getting scratched right away. And I was angry. So I took one of these canes, which was a good inch thick, and started gnawing on it with these stupid scissors. And I cut and I cut and I cut. And finally, after quite some time, I cut it off. I went to put it to the side and I reached back around for my scissors and the cane had grown back.
Oh.
And again, this demon is laughing. And I thought, this is okay, fine. If that's how I'm going to get out, I just thought I'm not going to show. He says, no, you just go ahead and despair. Just give up because you're not going to get out of here. And I thought it was a strange use of the word despair. And I knew that in my heart I was taught, no, that's the one thing you must not do. If you believe in God, you must not despair. But I could not even imagine the word God. It was interesting. People ask me, well, why didn't you call on Jesus? And why didn't you do this? Because in hell, God is not wanted and God does not go there. So I had no concept of God at all when I was down there. I was just me. So I said to that creature, I'm not giving up. And I leaned down to cut it again. And then boom, it was another situation where I was rocked into the situation where I thought, now where am I? And this went on and on and on. I don't know how much time you've got on this show, but it's a very long story. Again, as detailed in the book. One of the ones that was the worst, and I always hate to tell this one. It's painful for me, but I need people to know how horrible it was. And it makes sense at the end because my premise is that we make our own hell, that some of us are taught, and I was raised a Catholic, that nobody goes straight to heaven because everybody commits sin in their lives and they have to atone for that. Now, some people say, yes, but Jesus died for our sins. But then other people taught us that there's a certain place called purgatory, which is either between heaven and hell or is hell, but purgatory means you get out. It was all very confusing. And I started learning this when I was 5 or 6 years old. And so 50 years of believing in this, I did believe it. So I thought, okay, I am in some terrible place, but I don't know where. But the next time in this instance, I was in a bright place and I thought, okay, that's good. Light is good. But it was like this huge hospital hallway as far as you could see. And way at the end, there was a door. And then there was a door on one side and one door on the other side of me. And I thought, okay, doors is good. Maybe I can find a way back home to get out of here. But as I heard these stompings of feet and I looked up and another demon was coming running down the hall toward me. So I thought I have to pick a room. So I looked to the right and then I looked to the left. And when I looked to the right again, the demon was right in front of me. They moved very quickly. And I just looked up and he says, this will be your job. And I just looked at him and he says, he had this big like club thing. And he pointed to the room on the right. And he says, you will go in there and you will take whatever they give you. And then he pointed to the room on the left. You will come across this hall and you will go into that room and you will put down what they give you. Then you will go back to the right. And this is going to be your job from now on. Right, left, right, left. And I thought, well, this will give me a chance to kind of scope out if there's any other escape routes, because I really didn't know where I was. I just knew that I wasn't in Kansas anymore. So he pointed to that room and said, get in there. I had an interchange with a nurse that was in the hall. That's in the book. But I went inside and I looked and there was all these gurneys with women laying on them and their legs were splayed and they had sheets across them. And I thought, what in the world is going on? And then I noticed that there were doctors. I just saw their backs sitting on stools in front of the women's legs. And I thought, oh, no. And one of the doctors raised his hand. He didn't turn around. I just stared and he turned around on me and he says, get over here. And so trembling, I went over and stood there and he says, put out your arms. And I did. And he had been doing an abortion on this woman. And here was what was left. There was this little pieces of a baby and all this blood and gore and horrible stuff. And I was just shocked. It took my breath away. And he said, now take that across. You get out of here, Well, I was a person that was pro-life in life. And I had worked for an organization called Birthright. And we did everything we could to encourage women who felt they couldn't have the babies to go ahead and do that. We could put them up for adoption or whatever, help them out so that they didn't have to have an abortion. So this was a really terrible thing for me. But I staggered into the hallway, the Demon Points with his club over there, and I went into this room, and the horror of that room it was a huge, biggest room I ever saw, kind of like if anybody knows what a Costco warehouse looks like. It looked like that, but it had piles and piles and piles very high, as far as you could see, of all these abortions that had happened. And I was just heartsick. And I put the baby down and I backed out, and the demon pointed to the room and says, "Back you go." And I said, "No, I am not going to do this. I won't." And I crossed my arms and I stomped my foot. And he said, "Oh, you have no idea what you're asking for." And he raised his club, and I closed my eyes, and boom, I was in another place. And this went on and on. In between, sometimes I got to take a nice walk on this seemingly endless dirt road that was uneven. It was just barely light enough to see. I couldn't tell what was out there. There was just big rock formation sometimes, or a dead tree. I don't know what it was. It was hard to tell, but I just kept walking because I didn't know where else to go. Along this road, I did meet a lady who was fixing this sumptuous feast. There was tables with food piled high on it, and I, again, not knowing I was dead, it smelled so good, and I felt hungry, and I felt tired, and I felt thirsty, and here was a human being for a change. And so when she turned around, I was shocked. It was somebody from my family who is still alive. And so that was another thing that said I wasn't dead, because here was somebody else I knew. But I thought, this is not right. What's going on? And I said, well, I named her, and I says, "Could you just spare a little tiny plate of a little something? I haven't had anything to eat or drink." And she says, "This is for important people." I was shocked. I mean, we were really close, and I didn't know what else to do. She turned her back on me, and so I kept walking. And I thought, I just don't understand what's happening. There were several more encounters. The worst was yet to come. On the road, I started noticing shapes as I approached what seemed to be a group of people, and they were shuffling and muttering and had like rags on. And I thought, well, it's, I don't know, a village, a homeless encampment. I don't know what this is, but I felt great danger. Danger was there. And these were not friendly people. These were not people I should talk to. So I kept my eyes down, and I kind of shuffled a little, like trying to look like them, and tried to walk through this crowd that wasn't doing anything but just kind of meandering. But they must have felt me, and they stopped. And I thought, this is not going to be a good situation. And the women, I could tell, that had the skirts, kind of long, ragged skirts, backed off, and the men started circling me, and there were quite a few of them, and I just waited. And then one pushed me, and another one kicked me, and another pushed me down. And then there was a group interaction that was not pleasant, and I was assaulted. And then one man, before he left, just peered down really close into my face, and I could see that his skin was coming off, and he was just so rancid, and he just said, "We've all got AIDS, and now you've got it. And you will get sicker and sicker, but you can't die." And then he backed off. That was a low point. I was starting to lose hope. And I just lay there and started getting my clothes back and just sat on the ground. And this woman came out of the crowd, and she didn't look like one of them. And she says, "You are one of us now. Come with me." So I got up, and I thought, well, she doesn't look totally human, but she's better than this group. So I followed her. And as I did, there were other women in a group she had kind of corralled over to the side. And she said, "Follow me." And we started walking. And that became another scene. But this one was snow as far as you could see, and this terribly cold wind. And we were walking single file through the snow, following her. And the expression "cold as hell" came to mind after I got back. But we walked, and nothing but rags to cover us. And I can remember that it got chest high. I remember that. So trying to stay in back of the person in front of of me and how cold my feet were. And we got to this cabin, I guess, and it was just made of wood. There was no insulation. So even though we got in out of the snow, the wind was still blowing through. I remember the sound. The women were huddled together trying to get some warmth. And this woman says, well, now we wait for customers. And I thought, oh, no. I was just about at my wit's end. And I said to her, I've been here for a very long time, and this seems like a particularly depressing day. Is there something I'm missing? And she says, oh, well, it's Christmas on Earth today, and that's always the worst day in hell. And that's when it hit me. And I didn't feel dead, and I thought, oh, no. And then the word Christmas, I clung to that word, and I thought, okay. And I started singing a Christmas carol, and it was Away in a Manger. That's my favorite. And I got through the first sentence, away in a manger, no crib for his head. And this demon lady shrieked at me to shut up. And then one of the other ladies joined in, and then another lady, and we continued with the song, and we got the little Lord. And when the next word was about to come out, that woman shrieked and pounced on me.
Didn't want you to say the word Jesus, the name Jesus.
That's right. And so again, boom, I'm somewhere else.
And this happened over and over and over again. How long would you say, because you say you were in the coma for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Were you living this for 3 weeks?
When I got back, it took me years to figure out by talking to other people what happened. Over there is no time. It's an eternal now. That's all I can say is it's just always now. That it's never ending. So when I got back and had plenty of time in my recovery to try and think about this and write it out and all, in my mind, I felt like I was gone about 2 years.
Wow.
By all the things that happened and the length of time between them. That's how it felt. But it can all happen in a blink of an eye in Earth time. So there's no way to correlate the two.
I kind of know what you're talking about because when my father passed away, I had a vision of him. He came to me and let me know that he was gone. And I'm telling you, Kathy, I sat there like I was in a drive-in movie and I watched this scene unfold in front of me. Yeah. And it was like I watched a movie, but literally it was only seconds in Earth time because I was in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the George Washington Bridge when it happened. And here I am watching my deceased father in front of me on this screen, and I'm bawling my eyes out. And I felt like I watched a full-length movie, yet it was only seconds in Earth time.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly how it is. It's people, you can't explain that to people. The only other thing I can think of is, I don't know if you've ever been to Las Vegas or it's not, but you go inside those casinos and there's no clocks and there's no windows. And so you have no idea that you've been there for 11 hours, and you think you've just been there for 2. It's that kind of thing. You're so focused on what's happening. Yeah. But anyway, this time there's a very bright light, and everything that I had been experiencing before that second was just gone. It's like my life started now, and I was just enveloped in bliss. It was joy and love, and later I thought the only thing it felt like every molecule of me was swimming in love. I was just floating in this bliss. It was awesome. It was wonderful, and it was all white, and then I could kind of make out a table on the side there. And I thought, that's strange. Looked like an architect's table with this huge book on it, and it was open about halfway. And again, I was just glancing around the room, but trying to figure out where I was. And then most of the walls were kind of white, but they kind of weren't really walls. It's hard to describe. And then I looked to the front of me, and there's my friend who had died the month before, and he had died of leukemia. So he had, when I saw him last, he had no hair. He was like purple and mottled and bruised and wrinkled up and horrible. And here he was, big as life, standing over there. It looked like he was in front of a doorway. And, my heart just leapt. And I thought, oh, my gosh. And he was kind of doing this little jig thing and smiling. And he looked great. He looked about 35 years old instead of 53. He had a sweater on that I had given as a present. And he just looked wonderful. And I thought, oh, he doesn't know he's dead. It really hit me hard. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be the one to tell him. But I thought, well, wait, now he's really laughing. And I thought, oh, he read my mind. He heard what I said. And so I had to switch my thinking. And I thought, well, okay, if he's dead, then I must be dead. I'm dead. Oh, it was thrilling. I was dead and I was obviously and I thought, oh my gosh, I was just so happy and so happy to see him. We had been engaged for 7 years. We were very close and he helped me raise my kids. I mean, we were still best of friends when he passed away. And so I thought, where's all the angels and stuff? Where's the music and the flowers? It's just this big white room with that book over there. And I thought, that book, oh my gosh, he was showing me something in that book. What was it? And I thought, all I could remember is I said, oh no, that's going to be too hard. I want to stay here with you. And so that flashed in my mind and he starts walking toward me, but he's kind of floating. And I wanted to hug him and he kept a distance and he says, now, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're throwing me out. And I said, no. I've worked really hard to get up here. I'm not going anywhere. And I just said, no, stop my foot. No, I'm not going. And he just smiled and I was gone. I did have a little timeout place. A lot of people say that they go to the edge of an area in nature usually. And then for me, I went to this like beautiful field, gorgeous place, flowers, and it was gorgeous. And then they had a little running stream and I was told to follow the stream and it went downhill. And I met 3 ladies who gave me a message to give to somebody. And then I woke up in this hospital room, which was bright white with lots of light. And at first I thought I was back in heaven. And then I couldn't move and I couldn't talk. And there's all these people in the room. And it took me a minute. I thought, what's going on? I was hot. And I thought, what's going on? I'm back in hell. Oh, no. And then my daughter says, oh, look, Mom's back. It clicked. Oh, my God. I was really sick. I was in a coma. What happened to me? And she came over and she says, now, Mom, you've been really sick. We almost lost you, but you're back and everything's going to be fine. And I thought, I don't think so. I can't move. I can't talk. I'm in a hospital. Obviously, it's CCU. And you're saying I'm going to be fine. Well, it was a good thing I couldn't talk because I was very angry with them. They kept saying, oh, we prayed and we prayed. We had this prayer circle around the world to bring you back. And I thought, oh, it's your fault. It's your fault I'm back here. I was very glad not to be able to yell at them right then. They were so happy I was there. But I weighed 86 pounds. I'd lost all my muscle mass. That's why I couldn't move. I had the ventilator. I couldn't talk. When they did it, a doctor came in the day afterwards and did a muscle test on everything. And I could move one finger, one joint of one finger and blink. That was it. They said I was going to have to relearn everything like a newborn baby because my muscle memory was gone. And like I say, I was laying there skin and bones, literally. And a couple days later, they put some device on my throat so I could talk like a robot. And at least I could communicate, but I didn't know what to say. How do you tell your family you've been in hell and you're a good Catholic girl? I mean, I tried when they said, oh, my mom said later, you got to see Patrick, didn't you? That was his name in heaven. And I said, I just shook my head, yes. And she says, oh, I could tell the whole time you were laying there in that bed, you never moved. You just kept getting thinner and your face was just this mask. And no matter what we did to talk to you or tell you stories, you never moved at all. But once she says, all of a sudden I was telling you something and I looked at your face and you were talking between that thing in your mouth or wherever it was, but you were talking to somebody and your face just lit up. It was just beautiful and you were smiling. And Mom says, I said, Patrick, you can't have her. You send her back. I thought, oh, my mother, if I could get up and strangle you with my parents, I would gladly do that. It's very, very good that I can't say what I'm really thinking. But so that's the one thing I thought was kind of interesting. My mom and him were real close too. But yeah, it took a long time to get out of the hospital. I was there a month in CCU, and then it took me a month in a physical rehab facility, working night and day, not night, but up to like morning to dinner time, 6 days a week. I think we were doing it, maybe 7.
I write books on hauntings. I'm not sure if you knew that.
Oh, yeah. I read one. Yeah, it was great.
I have chapters in my books on other strange phenomena, which has enabled me to write about a variety of different things, not necessarily ghostly. In my most recent release, Warren County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, I dedicated a chapter to near-death experience. When researching and interviewing a large array of individuals who they themselves experienced near death, I was overwhelmed and touched by the stories that I was told. Many who I interviewed have never spoken to an outsider. I was the first. They only would talk to others who had experienced the same thing. It was out of that fear of ridicule. I felt honored to be the individual to share their story, which I feel is an important one with the world. All of these people's lives were changed by their encounters. After your experience, you wrote Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat, which offers a glimpse into your dysfunctional family life before your near-death experience and its after effects. Do you feel that everyone that has a near-death experience, or everyone, let's say, that dies, do you feel that we all have to experience hell and heaven?
I was actually going to ask that too. I was very curious about that.
Well, it bothered me for a long time when people would tell all these wonderful stories. And I thought, I wasn't that bad a person. What's going on? So it took me 10 years to get to IANS. That's the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And that's a series of synchronicities. Those are the things that happen that shouldn't but do. And those are planned. Those are heaven events. And then also the voice becomes very loud. Most people hear their conscience or their guardian angel sometimes when you get, you're going to do something you think, I probably shouldn't do that. Well, that's God. That's the consciousness. That's our higher self. So when you come back, it's really loud, the voice. So the voice was bugging me to go up to IANS and meet people and talk to people. So I went, and it took a couple of meetings, and people said, oh, you've had one of the dark ones. That's cool. I said, well, not really. And they said, well, yeah, because only about 15% of the people have those, and we never hear about them. So we want you to tell us our story in front of this group. And I'm not a public speaker. And I said, I don't think so. So they kept bugging me, and finally I did. Now, the result of that was so funny. I expected to be booed out of there, just like, oh, you terrible person. But at the end, everybody clapped. They clapped because they'd never heard it. They were so thrilled that I got out of hell. And the story, or the way I understood it later, was by reading other people, but mostly from Nancy Evans Bush, who's a very intelligent, very together, very proper lady who also went to hell. And her bottom line was, those experiences are for the brave souls. They go down into this darkness where everybody's kind of afraid of, experience it, and bring back the lessons for them. She attributed it to like the Greek hero tragedies where the hero goes down into Hades and does something and comes back up with a message. So that for me was life affirming. It changed my life. Instead of being a damned soul, I was now a brave soul. And now I just had to figure out what the message was. And that took a lot of time and reading and all that. But bottom line is that, I don't know if you're into manifestation, whatever we manifest happens. But in my life, my entire life, from the time I was a child, I believed I would go to purgatory, which is hell, except you get out. No matter how good, how bad, unless I was Mother Teresa. Now, Mother Teresa probably got a straight shot. She's a saint. But the rest of us had to go to hell for some reason and pay for our sins. Well, it's not true, because I now know from experience that God is all loving, all forgiving. And the fun part is that I've learned that we're all little pieces of God. We all start in heaven. We're souls. We're pieces of God. We're all one. But we decide to come to earth to learn lessons, to be an individual, to experience, to see what it's like to be a human being, to be good, to be bad, because none of that's in heaven. So we choose our lives. We choose the people we're going to come down with. We choose what we're going to learn, and then we go home. And that's where the Misfit in Hell to Heaven expat comes in, because we all start in heaven. And I went to hell, but I was a misfit because I wouldn't do what they told me to. Mm-hmm. And then I was a heaven expat. And we're really all heaven expats. Expat means expatriate. And on earth, somebody who lives in Britain, but they go to work in China. They get their work done in China and they go back. But while they're in China, they're called an expat. So we all start in heaven. We come down to earth and we do our work. We're expats. and then we go home.
And do you believe we do it more than once?
Oh, yeah. I always wondered, I thought God has got to recycle some of these souls because there's billions and billions of people that have lived over the millennia, and that doesn't seem right. So when I was talking to all these people who have been there and who got to stay and got to learn things, the Akashic records and all that stuff that most of our little human brains cannot even fathom what's on the other side. It's just too big. But people come back with different experiences from heaven, and we have some understanding. Like when you saw your dad's life there, we get a life review, and it's like a movie, and I'm told it's like an IMAX with all these thousands of different pictures, and you see every second of your life and how it felt for you to do these things. Did you feel good about that? Did you feel not so good about that? And then it flips around and you get to actually sense what it was like to interact with yourself. So if say your daughter and you have a terrible blow up and she gets her feelings hurt, someday when you're in heaven, you'll get to feel how she felt when you were yelling at her, or the days you have a great thing happen, you'll get to feel the joy that day that you took that homeless lady to lunch, whatever. But we get to enjoy that. And so that's not punishment. That's just understanding. What did I learn? I didn't learn that quite as well as I wanted to, but I did this. So people choose, I'm told, to come back again and try it again. Some people, they say, aren't people. They go to another planet. They go to astral traveling. There's all kinds of stuff to do up there that we're so limited in this body, in this existence. And it's so small. Even 100 years is such a small time.
How exciting. So you're saying that you feel that everyone's purpose in life is to learn these lessons.
Yeah, that they chose to learn. And that takes the victimhood out of my life. And because whenever something happens to me bad, and I had a lot of things happen to me bad in life, and I took those experiences with me and made a hell out of them, which was worse than what I experienced, but still bad. So now when something like that happens, my daughter died, she's 2 days. Why did you kill my daughter? I mean, what kind of God are you? No. I chose that. My daughter chose that. And I learned a lot from that experience, how to be empathetic for other people, what it feels like to lose someone close. Those were all good lessons. And she chose to only come down for a short stint this time on Earth, but said, but I'll go with you. I'll be with you 9 months and 2 days, and then I'm going home. I'll see you when you get here. I'll save you a place. So I don't feel a victim anymore. And that's huge. I think so many of the people in the world feel like victims. And if they knew that they'd chosen that themselves, how different would that be?
Very true. So true.
So it's not just me. There's thousands of people that have had these experiences, and we pool them all. And it's just fun. I love our seminars. I've been to 2 or 3 of them now. And the energy that you get in a room of 300, 400, 500 people who've been on the other side. I call it my dead people. My friends, my favorite people are dead people. Because there's just such joy, and everybody's in a good mood, and we all don't have to fear telling our stories because we all understand. We all believe each other. And
none of you fear death?
No. I want to go home. I was at the hospital not too long ago with pneumonia, and they told me wrong that I had a pulmonary embolism when they were doing an X-ray of my lungs. And I says, oh, that means I'm toast. And they said, pretty much, we're gonna try. You should have seen his eyes. They got real big. I was there with my boyfriend who loves, knows all my stories, and he's had 3 cardiac arrests, so he's into it. So I said, I'm toast. And he goes, well, we can try and, dissolve the blood clot. And I says, yeah, and if it goes to my brain, I have a stroke. And if it goes to my heart, I have a heart attack. And I don't have a very good chance, do I? He says, you don't understand what's going on here. And I said, no, you don't understand what's going on here. I says, I get to go home. And my boyfriend says, I am so jealous. And they're about ready to throw us both out of there. They thought we were both crazy.
Oh my gosh.
But that's my feeling, because I know that once I get my work done, we've all signed up for stuff. And once you get your work done, and for me, I thought it was going to be, oh God, I've got to be Joan of Arc. They told me I had so much left to do. But it's a lot of little things. It's just how you treat this person and that person and this person. And I've got this imaginary thing in my mind of a chalkboard with all these ones on it for all the people that I have to interact with. And every time something happens where somebody says, and it happens a lot, boy, if I hadn't talked to you today, I don't know what I would have done. I really needed to hear that. And mentally, I cross off one more person, one more person. And eventually, when I get that last person crossed off, it's going to be homecoming. So no, I'm not afraid. That there's that little part of me that's still human that still says, wonder if you're wrong. Wonder if you go back to hell. And I had such trouble with that for the first couple of, many years. And so finally I said to God one time when we were talking, I'm sorry to say this, but I really have this one little tiny, can you give me something positive to do every day that reminds me that if I do these things, I don't want to get thou shalt not. Give me something positive. So over a period of months, I got the first time I woke up in the morning and it was loving and kind. Be loving and kind. And all day long, I would see the word kind written down or loving somewhere. And I thought, okay, that's all I got to do. Be loving and kind. And that's what Jesus taught. That's what all the main people that have come down, they just love God and love your neighbor. It's really that simple. But I got more. It was loving and kind, merciful and forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental. That's a biggie. And useful. Mm-hmm. Do something useful with your life. So every morning when I get up, I got my picture of Jesus sitting there, and I say, help me to be loving, kind, merciful. I say that every morning to get click in. This is not reality here. This is what I chose, and I want to get my job done, and I want to go home. So that's the thing that I came back to share. You do not have to go to hell unless you believe in it and you want to. You think you should, but God doesn't send you there. God doesn't judge anybody. So don't do it. Don't believe in that stuff. You're just making trouble for yourself. It's not necessary. And I think that's a pretty big thing I wish somebody had told me that before I got to be 75 years old.
I mean, I knew God is all forgiving, but thank you for saying it again, because after talking to you and listening to what you said, I did really hear that part of it. And that's really important, that he's all forgiving, no matter what we do.
And as far as being religious anymore, people that come back generally are not religious. They're spiritual in that religion, when you look at it from so far away and from a space of an all-loving God, there's a lot of man-made rules that have come down over the thousands of years. It's become very exclusive instead of inclusive. You can't go to heaven if you don't believe this. I'm sure God shivers when God hears that stuff. It's just so not true. It's just so not fair to teach a little child that. I had trouble going to church at Mass. We had a new pastor, and he was darling, and I loved his upbeat sermons. But one day he was saying something to the little kids in the front row, and he says, now, you remember, you be nice to your sister. Don't you hit your sister because you'll make God cry. I tell you, I rushed out of that church after then. I went up and I said, got in his face, and I says, Father, do not tell children they can make God cry. A, it's not true. B, it gives them a little more power than they should think they have. And you're warping them. God loves them unconditionally. So it got to where I was hijacking this guy every Mass after Sundays, and he started dodging me. So I thought, it's time for me not to go to church anymore. I can't. I felt like a fake or a fraud saying I believed all that stuff anymore, because I don't. If whatever people believe, that's what they need. That's what they chose. That's what it works for them. I'm not trying to tell anybody that. I just wish they'd understand that they don't have to go to hell, that God is all loving and forgiving.
Because those things that they say to kids make an impact, even like you said. You'll remember that 20 years later if you were taught that when you were 5.
Right.
And it creates a big impact. It really does.
I was born and raised a Catholic, just like you. I went to Catholic grammar school and high school. Yeah. And when my children were born, at that point, we were going to a Catholic church as well. And then I had a really bad experience. I mean, I was in charge of a children's play group that was a church-run organization for years. And they were switching priests at the time. And in doing so, they decided that they didn't want the children's play group there anymore. So now you're talking 50 women and their children up in this club that we would meet once a week. We lived in a very secluded area in mountains. And so this was really an outlet for the women as as much as the children to meet with each other and just have socialization. And they were telling us that we were considered a non-church group, and they were kind of like kicking us out the door. Oh. So I went to the other area Catholic churches for help, and they all turned their back on me. And then I went to the Archdiocese, and they turned their back on me. So I turned my back on the Catholic Church. I said, I don't want anything to do with it anymore. So we started going to these non-denominational churches and other, there were Methodist churches, Episcopalians, asking for help to find a home for the children's playgroup at the time. Mm-hmm. And do you know, every single one of them helped. One led me to another that led me to another. And finally, we got a home in another church that just allowed us to have that room and told me to my face, you don't have to become a member of this church. We just want to help you. Oh. And that was like, wow, that was an eye-opener for me. So when we moved to our new town, I wasn't going to go to a Catholic church because I'd really been hurt by that whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't feel like personally I was able to give my children the religious background that I wanted them to learn, like Bible stories and that whole experience. So we had found a church locally and had gone to it for many, many years. But like you say, it's that organized religion really puts a hold on certain things and only allows things to go to a certain extent. And although the children are getting that basis that you want them to have, they're still missing out on something.
Yeah, the moral compass. They get a moral compass. What's right and what's wrong, and at least that there is a God. And it's not good to grow up without that either.
Mm-hmm. And they have it, and they believe. Both my girls do believe. And the way I look at it now is I'm a Christian. Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and I don't have to believe in any particular religion to be that person. I can have him in my heart, and I don't need to go to church too.
Right. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You know, you can just know that God loves us. That's all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can't drive God away.
So where would you suggest people who have had their own near-death experience go for support after? I know because I've spoken to these people, some of them have gone on Facebook looking for groups to share their experience because they don't want to talk to somebody who hasn't because they know
they're not going to understand what they went through.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
So it's IANDS.org. International Association of Near-Death Studies. They've got people all over the world that belong. They're the nicest people you could ever run across. We have sharing groups for veterans, for people with distressing ones, the Christian group, all kinds of groups of people that get together on a monthly basis and just share their stories or learn more, speakers and all kinds of videos and stuff you can learn. It's just a wealth of information. It's wonderful. It saved my life. It really did. I thought I was going crazy.
We weren't crazy. And where would somebody go to get your book?
It's on Amazon, and the name of the book is Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat. And that's my website too, www.misfitinhelltoheavenexpat.com. And there's a place for them to contact me. And if somebody wants to talk to me, I'm always open for discussing it and helping people. That's why I'm here.
Oh, that's wonderful. So they can get your email through your website and they can reach out to you that way.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Well, thank you so much for sharing your spectacular story with me today, Kathy.
Thanks, Eleanor. Nice to meet you, Cassidy.
You too. I'm very fascinating. I was completely intrigued the whole time. I really was. Awesome. I mean, it's so interesting.
To know that there is something spectacular for us to go to and to meet and listen to somebody like yourself who no longer has that fear of death and is welcoming it with open arms for when it does happen.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, you might enjoy the book. There's an awful lot about how I got to be who I am and my family is just, and then about things that have happened to me since then. I think the most fun thing that happened is my dad passed away, which sounds weird, but he wrote the first chapter of my book. He was the first Christian in our family. He was shot down over the Philippines in World War II, and plane landed upside down and caught fire. And he said he was an atheist. atheist, and he said, God, if you're out there, get me out of this mess, and me and my family will become Catholics. And the plane lifted up. Some guys had run out of the jungle, and they got him out, cut him out of the plane, and drug him into the jungle, and we all became Catholics. So he was 90. He died this COVID in January. He was a week short of his 97th birthday, and we had many talks. He was so happy to get that little, he always wanted to write his war stories and get them published. And I said, you did. You and I published together. It was so cool. So he kept saying, now tell me again, what's on the other side, or tell me again. And he always loved to fly. He flied when he was in the Navy for 30 years. So I says, well, you can just take off and fly, Dad. Just go anywhere you want. And we went through a lot of things together talking about it. So when he was dying, my family was there because they all had got COVID at the same time. They were in California. So what a blessing, huh? What a blessing. Yeah. My whole family got COVID. And I couldn't get down because I was in Washington. I couldn't fly. But they were there when he died. And they said that when he was dying, I always told him too, somebody's going to come get you, Dad. Somebody always comes and shows up. You don't know who it's going to be, but they always come and show up. So when he was dying, they said that he was kind of struggling with the oxygen. And all of a sudden, he stopped and he looked up at the ceiling, and they said his face just kind of glowed, and he got this big smile, and he closed his eyes and left. So I was wondering, everybody was saying, I bet it was this person. I bet it was that person. And a couple of days later, my publisher, that was a lady that's also a medium, and we were talking about our contract, very serious. And all of a sudden she says, wait a minute, who's Mary? And I said, I'm Mary. My name's Mary Kathleen. And she said, no, the other Mary. And I said, well, my grandmother, my dad's mom. And she goes, oh, okay. And I says, why? No, never mind. And then she says, wait a minute, did your dad have a sister? And I says, yeah, Aunt Virginia. And she's died. Yeah. Oh. I says, what? And she says, well, your dad wanted you to know that his mom and his sister came to get him. And I says, oh, cool. And then she says, wait a minute, he's got something else. I says, yeah. And she says, I don't know if you'll understand this. Was he a pilot or something? And I says, yeah. She says, well, he said to tell you that the takeoff was a little bumpy, but he landed safely.
Oh, how wonderful.
Isn't that great?
That is so wonderful. Well, my chapters on other strange phenomena have enabled me to write on things other than ghosts, as I mentioned to you. And one chapter specifically in my Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena Part 2 dedicates to visits people have with their deceased loved ones, or experiences they had while they're with their loved one at their time of death. And I know with the utmost certainty that these personal experiences enabled these individuals to be more accepting of their loss. Afterwards, they're filled with hope and love and true faith. And you just telling me that story is just another one. Oh, it's just wonderful. Yeah. It's wonderful. He got his message to you, and that was just great.
Yeah, and I talk to him all the time. He'll help me find lost files. I mean, I get exasperated, and I'll say, okay, Dad, where in the heck does that file? Yesterday, I looked in this place 2 complete times, his whole file cabinet. I went over there and picked up. They're with us. They don't go somewhere. They're still around. That's why you don't mourn.
I always do that. I always knew that. I always know that they're here. But just recently I had an experience too. A friend of mine's a medium, and she said to me, give me a call on your way to work, because it was late at night when she was messaging me. Give me a call when you're on your way to work. So I did. And she says, listen, I was meditating yesterday, and I got a message, and 3 people came through, and I got names. She said, I got names. She said, I love it when I get names. Then I can see if it connects to you. And it was just so thrilling, because she shared with me that it was the first name was familiar, but it didn't click in respect to anyone in particular. But the next 2 names, one was Erna, E-R-N-A, and the other was Agnes, A-G-N-E-S. Not particularly common names. No. And that's my mother and my mother-in-law. That's my mother and my mother-in-law.
Oh, my gosh. So
she's
going to pick that out of the air. Yeah.
Oh, and I have these experiences with my dad. Yeah, he's with me all the time, but I haven't heard from my mother at all. And that was just so exciting for me to know that they're here and they're listening and they're trying to help us with our experiences.
Yeah, we're still going to miss them. We miss them, but it's so comforting to know they're just right there, and they're saving us a place. It's going to be fun. Yes. It's going to be a big party, man. When we go home, I can't wait. Oh,
Well, thank
shoot.
you once again. This was really a wonderful conversation to have, and I do appreciate it.
Been fun. Thank you.
And to the listeners that are out there, if you have your own personal strange and scary story of a paranormal or strange phenomenon category, email me at authoreleanorwagner@gmail.com. Feel free to visit the authoreleanorwagner.com website as well. To my ghostly listeners, you can follow me on my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, where there are links to my books and video updates and photographs from all of my investigations. Also, you can sign up or level up on my author Eleanor Wagner Patreon program now for special bonus opportunities available to its patrons, such as one-on-ones with me and co-hosting opportunities on an episode of Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World podcast. Do our vulnerable bodies at death's door allow us to shed our objective worldly reasoning and glimpse into the spirit world, or are near-death experiences really products of our own mental design? Perhaps the answer is a mixture of both mortal and divine reasoning. You decide. Thank you so much, Pat.
I love that.
And thank you, paranormal enthusiasts, for tuning in today. I hope you'll come back again. Remember to tap into your own gifts. Everyone has them. And in the meantime, make sure you're creeping it real.